Picture this, you're trapped in a time loop watching everyone you love die over and over again, or maybe you're cursed to kill everything you touch. Well, it sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, for some anime characters, that's just another day at the office. We're about to break down 12 characters that'll make your worst day look like a walk in the park. So get ready because things are about to get real messed up. Also, here's your heads up that there will be spoilers as we go into these characters' suffering, so you've been warned. Alright, let's talk about Rintaro Okabe from Steins Gate. This dude starts off like your typical nutjob scientist, all those Elsai Kongro vibes and whatnot, but holy crap does his story take a turn. See, Okabe gets stuck in these time loops, and he's forced to watch his friends die over and over again as he tries to save them after each failed attempt. Like, imagine seeing your best friend get shot or accidentally stabbing the girl you love. That's the kind of messed up stuff Okabe deals with on each time jump. And now, I'm no expert, but that's gonna mess with anyone's head. All that trauma, well, it gives Okabe some serious PTSD symptoms, flashbacks, anxiety, the whole package. No wonder he goes from goofy scientist to a broken man carrying the weight of the world. But you know what? All that suffering is what makes Okabe such an awesome character. He goes through absolute hell and comes out stronger, like he's been reborn. And trust me, we're just getting started with the pain in this list. Let me tell you about Subaru Natsuki from ReZero, the guy who takes what doesn't kill you makes you stronger to a whole new level. This dude has got it rough. Why? Well, because Subaru's in a world where death isn't the end, it's just a reset button. Now, Subaru's got this ability called Return by Death, which sounds pretty cool, right? Well, no, it doesn't. Every time he dies, he starts over from a certain point, but here's the kicker, he remembers everything, every single death. Can you imagine how messed up that must be? But it gets worse. Let's talk about one of his most brutal death scenes. Well, Subaru gets torn apart by a bunch of cute little bunnies. Yeah, you heard me right, bunnies. Ripping him to shreds, it was like something out of an absolute nightmare. That alone puts him on this list. However, that's not even the worst part. Subaru's all alone in this mess. No one else remembers what happened in these other timelines. He's carrying the weight of entire worlds on his shoulders and no one even knows it. Talk about lonely, right? So every time Subaru dies, he's got to relive all that pain, watch his friends die, and then try to figure out how to save everyone on the next reset. It's no wonder the guy's always on the edge of losing it. This show has got zero chill, pun intended, when it comes to putting Subaru through the ringer, and well, we freaking love it. Alright, let's talk about Homura Akemi from Madoka Magica. This girl's story is wild and, well, it'll mess you up. So, Homura made a contract to save her best friend Madoka's life. She got the power to time travel thinking she could change things, but man, did that backfire. Every single time Homura tries to save Madoka, it ends the same way. In tragedy. She's been at this for who knows how long now, watching her friend die again and again. It's absolutely brutal. And imagine going through that. You're giving it your all, trying everything you can think of, but nothing works. You're just stuck in this loop of failure and absolute pain. By the end, all Homer is left with are the memories of every time she couldn't save Madoka. It's actually heartbreaking. She put herself through hell for her friend, and what did she get? Well, nothing but pain and, well, more pain. Now, if there's one thing that these characters have taught us so far, it's that messing with time, well, it's a recipe for disaster. But okay, forget time travel, let's talk about a different kind of hell. Ever heard the phrase, get in the robot, Shinji? Well, it's not just a meme, it's the start of one of the most traumatic journeys in anime history. Shinji Ikari from Evangelion's story will make you question everything you thought you knew about suffering. Right, so Shinji's got his father, who's basically the worst. His old man's like, hey son, pilot this giant robot and save humanity. no pressure. And Shinji's there just thinking, wait, what? I mean, imagine being 14 and having to fight giant monsters while dealing with puberty at the same time. That's basically some next level BS right there. But of course, wait, it gets worse. Shinji's constantly on the verge of a mental breakdown. Like, one minute he's fighting angels, the next he's curled up in a ball questioning his entire existence. And don't get me started on his relationships, man. This kid's got more baggage than an airport carousel. And just when you think things can't get any more messed up, we hit the end of Evangelion. Holy hell, bruh. Shinji basically ends the world. Like, congratulations, you played yourself and humanity. But you know what? That's what makes Shinji so goddamn interesting. He's not your typical hero. He's a wreck, he's selfish, he's scared out of his mind, but he's also just a kid trying to deal with stuff way above his pay grade. Love him or hate him, you can't deny Shinji Ikari's got one of the most painful journeys in all of anime. Alright, let's talk about Hyakkimaru from Dororo. This guy had it rough, well, from day one. Maybe even before that. This guy was born without limbs or skin, can you believe that? Yeah, well, his dad made some messed up deal with demons, trading his unborn son's body parts for prosperity. Father of the year material, right? So little Hyakkimaru, well, he enters the world basically like a living skeleton. His own dad throws him away like he's nothing, but our boy, well, he doesn't give up. He goes on this wild journey to get his body back bit by bit, and let me tell you, it's certainly no picnic. Every time Hyakkimaru gets a body part back, it's agony. Think about suddenly being able to hear or see for the first time. It's not all sunshine and rainbows as you expect, it's actually totally overwhelming. But Hyakkimaru keeps going, fighting demons and dealing with some heavy moral questions along the way. And it makes you wonder, how does all this trauma shape a person? Hyakkimaru, well, he's been through more suffering than most of us can even imagine. It's no surprise he's got a pretty dark view of humanity, but that's what makes his story so gripping. You can't help but root for this guy as he fights to become whole, both in body and in soul. Okay, let's talk about a guy who took control to a whole new level. Diavolo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Well, he thought he had it all figured out with his time-erasing powers, but man, did that backfire on him big time. He ended up in a situation that will make you wonder if there's such a thing as too much punishment. The world of JoJo's is already pretty wild, right? But Diavolo's story cranks up the crazy, that's for sure. This guy's got a stand called King Crimson, and it lets him erase time and see the future, which sounds awesome, it does, yes. But, this didn't do him any good in the end. Diavolo gets taken down by Gold Experience Requiem, and that's where the real nightmare kicks in. He gets trapped in an infinite death loop. He dies again and again, remembering every single death. It's like 1 second he's drowning, then he's getting hit by a car, and then he's being stabbed. It just keeps going forever. Can you imagine how messed up that is? That's like, it's basically like the most next level cosmic payback of all time. Like I said, is there such a thing as too much punishment? And if you think about it, the poor bastard's still dying right now as you're watching this video. Which reminds me, I've got to give a big shout out to Cars from Battle Tendency as well, who's also still floating around space as we speak. Similar kind of forever death, but not as bad as Diavolo for sure. Alright, let's talk about the mess, which is Ken Kaneki's life from Tokyo Ghoul. This guy's story is a whole different level of messed up. See, Kaneki starts off as your average college kid. He's probably stressing about things like exams and crushes. Then his life goes on a wild turn. He goes out on a date, and the next thing you know, well, he's waking up as a half ghoul. Talk about your poor dates, right? So now Kaneki's stuck in this weird in-between. He's not fully human anymore, but he's not a full-on ghoul either. And it makes me feel for the guy, man. Like, all he wanted was a cute girlfriend to read books with, but instead he gets hit with one tragedy after another. Like, the stuff this guy goes through from that point onwards, well, it's intense. First of all, he suddenly craves human flesh, and then he gets tortured until he breaks. He watches his best friend die right in front of him. He has a bunch of mental breakdowns, and he even gets his memory wiped against his will. It's like a non-stop roller coaster of pain for Kaneki. Well, as you can imagine, all this crazy stuff changes Kaneki big time. He goes from this shy bookworm to someone you wouldn't really want to mess with. But you've got to wonder, was it worth it? Tokyo Ghoul and Kaneki's journey, well, it's hard to look away, but it's also tough to watch him go through all that at the same time. Alright, let's talk about Rika Furude and her seriously messed up situation in the series Higurashi When They Cry. This poor girl, well, she's stuck in a time loop in Hinamizawa. This place is a village that looks all peaceful on the surface, but it's hiding some very dark secrets, and Rika, well, she's right in the middle of everything. Rika's deal is that she's basically reliving the same June over and over, and it's not exactly a fun summer vacation. She's dying a lot, and the worst part, well, of course, like most of the others on this list, she remembers every single time. Every betrayal, every brutal murder, every moment she watches her friends lose it. It's like the world's worst movie on repeat, and the poor girl just can't hit stop. Now, you would think that after a while she'd probably figure out how to change things, right? Well, nope. Every time Rika tries to fix stuff, well, it just blows up in her face. It's like the universe is laughing at her attempts to make things better. And because of that, Rika's got it tough, man. Like, she's trapped in this endless cycle of death and memories, and no matter what she does, she can't seem to break free. It's enough to drive anyone crazy, but somehow she keeps going. Talk about determination, right? Mad props to the girl. Okay, let me introduce you to a guy who gives a whole new meaning to the phrase time is torture. We're talking about a dude who endured a century of pain to die. Meet Xyloporo Grunts, an Arrancar scientist from Bleach who thought he was top dog, but guess what? He wasn't. He got his ass handed to him by Captain Mayuri Kuritsuchi, and man did Mayuri make this guy suffer. This is really crazy. So Xyloporo tried to be slick and revive himself through Mayuri's lieutenant Nemu. But this was a big mistake, as it turns out that Nemu was packing this insane superhuman drug that messed with Xyloporo's perception of time. We're talking 1 second feeling like 100 freaking years. Of course, it's now that Mayuri plunges his blade through Xyloporo's chest, which for us, of course, is a second, but for this poor sap, it's a century of non-stop agony. Every tiny moment stretches out forever, and the pain just keeps rolling. Every moment of agony, it drags on and on and on. And man, I remember when I first saw this, and I was like, this is one of the most messed up things I've ever seen. Like, Bleach is a series that is full of terrifying hollows and pain-inducing themes, but this was, and still is, probably one of the darkest moments of suffering in the entire series. You don't hear this phrase often, but there is one thrown around where people say they were born to suffer. Well, Lucy from Elfen Lied, well, that's not just a saying for her, that's her actual origin story. This pink-haired girl with horns has it rough from the absolute get-go. She's born with these invisible arms called vectors, which sound cool, but it turns out just to be a total curse, like all these powers are. Everyone treats her like she doesn't belong, and she ends up in this awful research facility where they do all sorts of horrendous experiments on her. And poor Lucy, well, she's got this really intense battle going on inside her own head. Part of her wants to connect with people, but the other part just wants to destroy everything around her. It's like she's fighting against herself 24/7, and let me tell you, it doesn't end well for anyone who gets close to her. Now, the whole thing wraps up in this bittersweet way that'll leave you feeling all kinds of, conflicted. Lucy's story is just one painful event after another, and it really makes you think about how much someone can go through before they snap. It's really heavy stuff, but that's what makes Elfen Lied so intense. Okay, so we've covered some seriously messed up characters and their suffering, but hold up, there's more. Yeah, let's talk about some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut, but damn, their stories are still pretty wild. First up, we got Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. This dude's whole life is just one big revenge quest. He's stuck in this cycle of violence and it's eating him up inside. Then there's Yato from Noragami, a god that nobody remembers. Poor Yato, man. Tragedy and suffering in its own way. Oh, and don't get me started on Akira Fudo from Devilman Crybaby. That show is so messed up and I still have nightmares about that guy's life. Future Trunks from Dragon Ball Z, his whole world got wrecked. You can't play down that guy's suffering. And then we've got Ash Lynx from Banana Fish. That poor dude can't catch a break at all. These characters didn't make the main list, and obviously there's a few more candidates, but there's only so much room. However, there's no denying that they're all dealing with some seriously heavy stuff, just like our top 12. It's like anime and mangas writers are always trying to come up with new ways to put their characters through the ringer. And you gotta wonder what goes through their heads sometimes, right? But you think those characters had it rough? Buckle up, friends, because we're about to dive into the life of a guy who makes their suffering look like a walk in the park. Ever heard of being born from a corpse? Yeah, well, it only gets worse from here. So let me tell you about Guts from Berserk, the ultimate sufferer. This dude's life is so messed up, it's like the universe had a personal vendetta against him. Born from a hanged corpse, check. Abusive childhood, you betcha. This poor guy was raised by a mercenary who beat the crap out of him and messed him up emotionally. And then just when you think it can't get worse, well, Guts has to kill this guy in self-defense. Talk about daddy issues, right? But wait, there's more, of course, man. The eclipse happens and, well, holy shit, it's a nightmare. Guts watches his friends get slaughtered by demons and his best friend Griffith, total betrayal. It's like the world's worst party and Guts is the guest of honor. After that, Guts is basically cursed. Demons are always after him and he's got to fight 24/7 just to stay alive. It's like the world's worst game of tag and Guts is always it. But you know what? This dude won't give up. He keeps swinging that big ass sword, fighting fate and every demon that comes his way. All this suffering has shaped Guts into one complex dude. He's got anger issues, trust issues, probably every issue in the book, but he's also tough as shit and won't back down. That's why people say he's the king of anime suffering, because no matter how bad it gets, Guts keeps going, and trust me, it gets bad. Real bad. So we've been through some seriously messed up stuff, right? These anime characters, man, they've been put through the ringer in ways that will make your head spin, but here's the thing, it's not just about making us feel bad. Nah, these creators are doing something way deeper with this. They're using all this pain to explore what it means to be human. It's like they're saying, hey, look at how much crap these characters have to take and still keep going. It's pretty wild when you think about it, and you know what? We can't get enough of it. You know, we're glued to the screen and these stories. But why do we connect with them so much? You know, maybe it's because we see a bit of ourselves in these characters. Sure, we're not fighting demons or stuck in time loops, but we all know what it's like to struggle. These anime stories, these characters, they remind us that we're not alone in our pain, and sometimes that's exactly what we need to hear. Now make sure to check out this video as we go deeper into Subaru Natsuki from ReZero, discussing how his story changed anime forever. I'll see you over there. Take care. Peace, peace.